Hey, what's going on? You know who it is? It's Bruce Jordan, Michael Jordan Hotel. And this one is going to be sponsored by besthotelbooks.com. We have a hotel financial legend in the house. David Lund, what's going on, man?
Hey, Bruce, how are you? How's
Pretty
the,
good, pretty good.
yeah, it's nice to know that after your career in basketball, you were able to get into hotels and that things have worked out for you. So there's hope, there's hope for all of us, you know?
For sure, for sure.
I
You
want
know, a lot of people don't know what they should do after they finish school and stuff like that. So,
yeah.
how did you get into this business?
I grew up in a small town in Atlantic Canada, a summer resort town in New Brunswick, right where Maine meets New Brunswick.
Mhm.
If anybody's up on their geography. And I basically grew up in the shadow of this hotel, quite literally. I walked by it going to school every day as a kid, and it was a big, resort. It was quite lovely, still is. And one thing led to another, and I ended up getting a job um, after high school there, and then I ended up going to hotel school in the same building. The local
Wow.
community college had a deal with the owners of the hotel, and in the winter the hotel's closed, so they ran a school there for a few years, and I was one of the first graduates. So that's how I got into hotels, and then that hotel was run by a company called Canadian Pacific, and they later around 2000 or just a bit before became Fairmont Hotels. They bought Fairmont Hotels and rebranded all the Canadian Pacific hotels Fairmont Hotels. Um, and I worked for the same company for 31 years, and I worked all over North America, all over Canada especially, but also in the States. And one day about 10 years into my career, I was kind of in a middle management job, you might say. And someone came along and said, "Hey, things aren't going so well with the hotel and the economy, and we're going to be doing layoffs, but there's a job in accounting if you want it." And I'm like, "What are you talking about, accounting? Come on, give me a break." But I talked to a good friend of mine who was a bit older and that I had a lot of respect for. And he said, "That's a great opportunity for you, David." And he kind of explained why. And I thought, well, what's he been smoking? But I listened to him, believe it or not. And a couple of years later, I got promoted to assistant controller. A couple of years after that, I was a controller, and it really fit well with my personality and my experience. It's not that I'm the greatest accounting mind in the world by any means. I'm not even a real accountant, but uh, I know operations, so I know what operational people are going through, and being the financial person and being able to relate to what they're up to. I think it was a big advantage for me in my ability to grow my career and move to different positions. So that's kind of how it happened. And a few years before I left Fairmont, I created a workshop, which wasn't my idea either. Somebody else came along and said, you should create this workshop and educate our leaders. And I'm like, that's nonsense. I don't have time to do that. I'm not a teacher. But they kind of insisted, and they were my boss, so that helped. But the day I delivered the first workshop, I knew I was onto something because, in the hotel, when most department managers see me coming, they head in the other direction because they know I want something. I want their invoices, or I want their commentary, or I need their budget submission. I need their forecast. I need their accruals. You know what it's like.
Oh yeah.
Um, but this workshop changed everything because now all of a sudden I've got a bunch of leaders that are really engaged with the numbers because they realize that this is the ticket to the executive office for their career. They need to know their numbers. And hey, David can teach us a lot about what's going on with these things. And they're not so mysterious. They're not so scary if we explain them in a group of people. And we all want to make a difference in the world. So showing someone their numbers make a difference is a big connector. And then finally, it's all about my approach. So for the perhaps 15 or 20 years before that, my approach was all wrong because I was sending out memos and I was sending out, emails about schedules, and it was always about feed me, give me the numbers, give me what I need. But it wasn't until I served those leaders with that workshop that they were then in turn more than willing to serve me back by providing me their forecasts on time and getting me their accruals and writing their commentaries and all the things that, as the controller, director of finance, I need in order to do the job well. I can't sit in my office and dream up what's going to happen next month in the sales department. It doesn't work that way. Or it doesn't work very well that way. A lot of people try and do it that way. They try and do all these things in camera, but there's a big disconnect when we do that in the hotel, and everybody needs to be on the same page when it comes to the numbers. And most hotels, that's, so far from the case. So that's how I got into accounting, Bruce.
Now, what inspired you to be an author? Because, doing something and then writing and put it in writing is like two different things.
Yeah. Well, as part of the effort to grow my business as the hotel financial coach, I hired a lady back in 2015 to do a coaching program. And her claim to fame was she was the expert of experts. Her name is Debbie Allen. She's a great lady anyways. She's still around. She helps people like me and you, but she created a brand for me, and she created a website, and she helped me with images and taglines and slideshows and all that kind of fun stuff. But one of the things she said was, in order to develop your funnel, David, we're going to need, call it the 7 secrets. And she goes, you can fill in the rest. Seven secrets to creating a financially engaged leadership team is what I came up with. And I had to write this guidebook to give away on my website to get people's email addresses so that I could then send them something, I guess was the idea. I had no idea what I was going to send them at that point. I just kind of followed her directions. But what I realized by writing this blog is that, by writing this guidebook was that I had a voice inside of me that I kind of really didn't know was there. And it was a voice about, what does all this stuff mean that we do, and how can we do it better? And there's a lot of fear and confusion around the numbers. Numbers have a lot of power in our society. A lot of hotels don't even share their numbers with their leaders. So I wanted to have something to say about that, because everybody knows that the numbers are the key to your career. If you don't know your numbers, you're limited in hospitality. You're not going to get to the executive office. If you are, you're not going to stay there very long, because the owner wants to talk about the results, not about guest service, not about colleague engagement. They're not plugged into that stuff. They're plugged into the numbers. How much money am I going to make next month, next quarter? How are we going to make more money, David? That's what they want to know. And you got to be able to speak their language, and they need to be fed. So if you want to get ahead in hospitality, know your numbers. And that's not just me that says that. So I thought, well, this is a great fabric for a business. And I couldn't really find anybody else that was doing what I had dreamed to do, which was create, a financial process that teaches leaders about their numbers. And I would say it's not accounting that I do, it's business thinking. We have accountants to do month end, to pay the taxes, to balance the books, to do the bank recs. They don't want you touching that stuff. That's dynamite. That'll blow up in your face. But they do want you to be able to manage your payroll and expenses and know, if we're on track to make our revenues, what does that look like? And how can we communicate that? And if we're not, then what do we need to do? How can we adjust our operation to fit the current occupancy and rate and RevPAR? And it's always going up and always going down, and we need to be able to adjust. And that's a difficult thing for a lot of people in our business to do, because they don't see it in quite a linear kind of way where, if I'm at 60%, what should I be doing compared to 72? Well, you should be doing a lot of things differently, as you know. But a lot of operational people, they don't see it that way. They think, well, I should be here providing the service and having all of the facilities open and doing all the things I would normally do. So what's the big deal? Well, yeah. As you know, in the business, every nickel counts, and every hour counts, and it all adds up. So having a group of managers in your hotel that all can manage their departmental affairs more efficiently, that's the sum of a great hotel, right? No matter what we're talking about, service, engagement, or the money, we have to have everybody engaged. We have to have everybody rowing in the same direction.
That's right. Absolutely. Yeah. Now you're off. Now you have 2 books. Okay.
Yeah.
What inspired you to write The Prosperous Hotelier?
I when I finished that guidebook with Debbie, and I thought it was actually pretty good. It made a decent story out of how do you create that team inside of your hotel? What do you need to do? What do you need to avoid? And then, that took I remember sitting down in the Panhandle in San Francisco on my lawn chair with a cold beer, a couple of afternoons at 3 or 4 o'clock, writing that. And I thought, this is kind of fun because I can do this. And then I just sort of thought, well, I'm going to try and get one of the chapters of that. It had 7 secrets, so there were 7 chapters. I'm going to try and get one of those published, in all these hotel rags. So I think I had just been to High Tech. And one of the things I did on this visit to High Tech is I grabbed every magazine I could find just so that I could rip the page out that says the publisher and the editor. And so I started emailing them all my stories. And, it wasn't long until I got my first one published. I thought, well, there we go. I'm published. That's great. But then I kind of got bit by that. And
why we're now. You got bit by that?
Well, it feels good to get your stuff published, get your name on the internet, get your name on that magazine cover, get your name on that, weekly email blast, whatever it is. And I started doing this on a, basically Monday to Friday, I would get up, before my wife. In these days, my kids are gone, but I'd get up at 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning, and I'd write for an hour. I'd write a blog. And, that was 2016, let's say. So this is almost 7 years later. And I've published over 300 weeks of continuous blogs. I've never missed one. And either I publish a written blog, or I also publish videos, which I'm kind of repurposing what's in some of my blogs into a short video, so people don't have to read a 10-minute article. They can watch a 90-second video and get the same idea. And as you know, probably by looking at my book, that's a feature of my book. I have QR codes, and I link to a lot of these videos to help emphasize what the chapter lesson was all about. But, I really did get bit by the writing bug. And after a short period of time, I thought, well, I can put these together into some kind of a logical format and create a book, which is what I did. And through a coaching program that I had taken, not Debbie's program, but another guy by the name of Steve Chandler, who's a very famous coach. He coaches like me around the business of coaching, not the method of coaching, but the business, because it's a business and you need to know what to do and what not to do. But I was in his school for, it's like a 1-year school. You meet 3 different times for a long weekend, basically. But at these meetings were a bunch of people, but on his support team. But one of the people that were there was his publisher, this guy by the name of Maurice Bassett. And he publishes a lot of books, and he publishes all of Steve's books. And I just said to him, hey, I've got a hotel manuscript. Would you be interested in taking a look at it? And he's like, hotel business? I don't know. Well, send it to me, basically. So I sent it to him. And then he had one of his editors look at it. First thing I learned is the publisher never looks at your book. He sends it to his editor for the editor to tell you what they think. And the editor basically said, there's no book here. Thanks, but no thanks. We can't work with this. Why don't you rewrite it or something like that? And I was like, kind of like, guys. Anyways, one thing led to another. And my grade 3 teacher, Mrs. Beasley, she sends me a note because she saw one of my blogs on Facebook or something like that. And she's basically sent a note saying, oh, David, it was so nice to see your blog. It's so cute. Do you remember me? I used to be your teacher. I remember when you used to do this. And of course I remember you, Mrs. Beasley. Well, her name isn't Mrs. Beasley anymore or whatever. It's Mrs. Williamson. And she's like 80 years old. Anyways, she offers to read my book and give me her thoughts. And she goes, well, but you're going to have to mail it to me. I was living in California at the time. She was in Canada. So I put it in an envelope with $40 so she could mail it back to me because it's expensive to mail stuff between Canada and the U.S. And about 3 months later, I got it back and it was all dog-eared and marked up. And she put a big cover letter on it, basically said, I have no idea who this book is for, David. You don't have an audience. You got to define who your audience is. And she told me a bunch of other things, but that was the one thing that stuck with me. So with that and with Maurice's feedback, like, rewrite it, I rewrote it. And
so what audience do you feel like you captured in this particular book?
Pardon me?
What audience do you feel like you captured in this particular book?
Well, really, there's two audiences. One is the operational leader who's upwardly mobile, who is great with their guests and with the hotel team and is a great operator, but they're ready for the big leagues, but they are not comfortable with their numbers. They don't know their numbers. They don't know how to read a P&L. They don't know how to read the balance sheet. They don't know how to do their budgets and forecasts. They have no training. That's the number one audience. The number two audience is the senior leadership team, the GM, the director of finance, that need to lead their people around the numbers. They need a process to follow. And one doesn't really clearly exist. And if we make it too much about what accounting needs, it's not going to work. We've got to combine the operational side of things so that the information is coming from the operation, not from the accounting department. Everything's kind of backwards in that world in most places. So, that's the other audience, is to help them understand how they can communicate and lead more effectively around the numbers so that their hotel is less stressful for people and more predictable and more profitable. So it's really those two audiences. But I rewrote the book under her guise. And again, I sent it to Maurice. And it took about a year and a half. Now, at this point, I'm probably 3.5, 4 years into this manuscript. I've rewritten it now for the second time, or written it for the second time. And he accepted it. He said, "This is great. We're going to publish your book, David." And then he sent me a contract, and he's like a full-blown regular publisher, right? But he sent me that contract, and I signed it and sent it back to him on the 10th of March, 2020. So we know what happened after that. The whole world just shut down, right? So my book project shut down for 2 years. And it wasn't until early last year, early 22, that we revived it. And I started working very much in depth with another one of his editors. And through that process, it was so frustrating. And I was still nowhere near comfortable, confident that the format for the book was the right one. So I rewrote it a third time. And I basically kept about half of it, but I put it together basically a 6-part, because there's 6 sections in the book, kind of laid it out in that kind of a format, kind of a, beginning, middle, and end kind of things, but just putting different groups of ideas and thoughts and processes and leadership material into different sections. And I got rid of a lot of chapters, and because I write every week, had written some really good stuff, some stuff that should be in the book that kind of replaced some of the earlier stuff. And then we finished editing it, and then my publisher wanted to hire a sketch artist to do some sketches, which was great. I think it really adds a lot of value to the book, those sketches.
Yeah, I love the sketches.
Yep. And then I had the idea for the QR codes, because I've been producing videos for about 3 years now. I've got all kinds of videos, and a lot of the videos are just, they dovetail the chapter lessons, precisely. So they're a really good feature. And then I started at the beginning of this year, 23, collecting endorsements for the book. And I hounded a lot of people in our industry. I'm surprised I didn't get a hold of you to hound you for an endorsement, but I even got Chip Conley to endorse my book, which I've never even met Chip Conley, but my daughter has, and she worked at Airbnb for a while, and she introduced him to me over the phone one day, and I had a chat with him early on in my solo career. And he gave me some good encouragement, but I don't really know the man. But I did reach out to him in January, and he agreed to write an endorsement for my book, which I thought was great. And I got a really good friend of mine who she just retired, but she was the CEO for Accor for North and South America. She wrote the foreword for me, Heather McCrory, someone I have a tremendous amount of respect for, and someone who really knows what it is she's looking for in her GMs and her people that she wants to be GMs when it comes to the numbers. I kind of stole that idea from her. The number one thing you need to have a great hotel careers, you need to know your numbers. If you want to
All right.
be a senior leader, if you want to, if you want to hang around the hotel and be the world's greatest, whatever manager, you can certainly do that. But adding the numbers onto it then gets you to the next level and beyond. But I collected, probably 24 endorsements, which, did take a while. And I thank all the people profusely that provided them. I can be a bit of a pest when it comes to this stuff, I know. But they were great because it really showed me, because I sent them all copies of the book to read. And I know most of them read it or read a good part of it. It really showed me that they liked the book. They were like, wow, David, this is amazing. This is exactly what our industry needs. And all of this stuff really fit into making the book great. And if I'd gotten it published way back when I first submitted it to Maurice, or even just before COVID happened, I don't think the book would have been anywhere near as good as it is today. It took 6 years from the time I put the first manuscript together to the time it was printed, almost to the day. So good things come to those who wait, I guess. But the book's been well received. It's selling well. And, getting some fantastic comments and feedback. And I've got over 40 5-star reviews on Amazon now, that's what you need to really get the book to hum, is those 5-star reviews. Amazon controls the book world in so many respects. So, anyways, that's kind of the story around the book and who it's for. And, writing it's a big accomplishment for me, for sure. I make no bones about this in the book. I was never a great student. I was much more interested in motorcycles and girls and hockey and, doing the things that teenagers are supposed to be doing when they're not studying. But it showed me that, I could do, as I said in there, my dad always used to say to me, David, you can do anything you want as long as you're willing to work for it in this world. And it really showed me that if you're willing to work for something like a book that you believe in, that you think is needed, you just have to stay in action. You just have to stick with it, no matter what people say, no matter how many rejection letters you get from other people and all of that stuff. But, I had some help along the way. I even had I used to listen to these blogs by another coach, and they're basically Cole's Notes version of self-help books, basically. Mm-hmm. And they were a great sense of kind of stability for me, especially early in my solo career, because once you leave a job for 31 years, everything around you is gone. All of your friends, all of the infrastructure, all of the support, all of the everything that you've enjoyed and not really realized for the last 31 years is gone in an instant. So you're kind of alone. But these
it's even hard trying to stay at a job for 31 years. Okay, you can't.
Oh my God, yeah,
you can barely stay at a job for 31 years nowadays.
I mean, who does that, right? Especially with the same employer. Anyways, but one blog that I listened to, it just set my mind on fire, was by Stephen King. And it's a book that he wrote. It's not a horror book. It's called On Writing. And it's about his experience with writing. And basically what he says is that writing is just a chore and anybody can do it, but you got to be willing to do it. You got to be willing to get up and put pen to paper and just produce. And if you can do that, that's how I've become super famous as Stephen King, and that's what you can do too. And I just thought, well, that's just amazing. That's kind of what I've been doing. So I'm just going to stay with it, stay at it. And some days I write some great stuff, and other days it's total crap. But you never know when you get up in the morning what you're going to create. And the other thing about writing, especially first thing in the morning, it's like going to the gym or it's like going for a run. You feel great when you're done because you've accomplished something. It's already 6 a.m. And then the rest of your day is usually so much better than if you don't take that creative time in the morning to produce something. If you're busy, doing your work or getting something organized for a client, it's not the same as creating something, as writing something. So that was really the fuel for me to just go on a warpath on writing these blogs. And I said to myself, I want to do this. I was 50 when I left my job. I want to do this for the next 25 years. So, 25 times 50, that's like 1,250 blogs. I'm almost halfway there. So, if my health hangs in there and if all things go according to plan, I want to continue producing a weekly blog or video until I'm 75. So, I'm almost halfway there.
Yeah, you got about 100 years left to go.
But at some point I will stop. But I'm getting, more and more subscribers all the time. I think there's a need in our industry to put a little polish and horsepower behind the financial part of things. The financial part usually gets kind of the dirty stick, if you like.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to talk about the numbers. Nobody wants to do the heavy lifting. Accounting kind of gets a bad rap for a bunch of, societal reasons that really don't make any sense, but that's just the way it is. And I'm okay with all that because, hey, I love it. So who cares?
I think accounting is number 2. HR has to be number 1. Like, nobody wants to talk to HR.
No. Touchy-feely stuff and rules and regulations and, yeah. Anyways,
listen, I think you made one big mistake. I think this book should have
only out. One?
Yeah, just one. This book should have came out in 2020. And the title should have been How Your Hotel Can Survive COVID.
Yeah. Well,
you would have sold 100,000 copies in a week.
Yeah. Well, so many things about COVID are kind of lessons, right? And obviously hindsight is 2020 and, knowing what we didn't know then. But yeah, absolutely. And, I have great plans in the sense that all those blogs that I've written, I've got enough material for 3 more books already. And one will be the Prosperous Hotelier 2, like Beverly Hills Cop 2, the Prosperous Hotelier 2. But then I want to do a book on leadership short stories because I write a lot of short stories that are really not about finance. It's more about leadership. But they all have something to do with the hotel business, all have something to do with something I've experienced. They all have a lesson included with them. And then the 4th book I want to write is, and there's a format for this kind of book, but basically it's a self-help novel. So they have characters, there's a story, but it's really about self-help. It's about how to solve a systemic problem in the hotel business. It's basically the same thing that's in the Prosperous Hotelier. It's just going to be written in a different format. So I'm really excited about that. And I've written about half of that, but the other 2 books are basically already written. I just need to be successful enough with the Prosperous Hotelier to have my publisher want to reinvest and publish more. So we'll see.
Okay. Well, listen, thank you for being on the show. That's our time. It looks like Zoom is calling us.
Yeah. Time flies when you're having fun. I love talking about the hotel business and chatting with you about, the financial side of things in the book, obviously. But what's going on in your world? Tell me what you're up to these days.
Man, we have the website up for we have our own hotel website now for books.
Yeah,
so, like all of the best books. Your book is, of course, in our top 5. So
right on.
Definitely go get this book at besthotelbooks.com. And my book could be coming out soon. We got pre-sale going on in a couple of weeks, and it should be dropping like sometime in October 15th, called The Hotel Revenue Bible.
Excellent. Congratulations on that.
I can't wait for that one.
Yeah. Well, and I know what it's like to get one of these books out. It's like there's so many last minute details, so many things you need to do. I just about lost my mind this spring trying to get it finished. It was just so much back and forth too with your editor, and even some of these editing tools and things you use. It's just like, okay, well, didn't we just change this last week? I'm going crazy here. But anyways, it's done now, and yeah, it was well worth it.
Absolutely.
Totally.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, David, you know what to do. Everybody, make sure you go out and get this book. This book is amazing. It's going to change your career, and that's our goal, to get you to the next level. You got to level up. All right.
Level up to the Prosperous Hotelier.
For sure. Like I said, this book's in our top 5 in our bookstore, so get out there and go grab it. And like every hotel person tells you, leave a review. Hey, what's going on? You know who it is. It is Bruce Jordan, Michael Jordan Hotels. Thank you for tuning into our podcast. Make sure you go out and get this book, The Prosperous Hotelier. It is available on besthotelbooks.com, where we have the best books for the best hoteliers just for you. And we'll be talking to you soon.